All morning this morning we've been celebrating International Women's Day. We're going to do it till we're done this morning. And in studio right now we've got a couple of very special guests from Tearfund. They're going to talk about a couple of really cool projects that they have been involved with. And first of all, let's welcome Helen, Manson and Kelly Burgess. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy International Women's Day.
And to you.
Thank you.
Oh,
That's
did you
what
wish
I
us
needed.
happy International
We
Women's
did.
Day?
We
Thank
did.
you. Thank you. We needed that. Thanks for popping in this morning. Appreciate
having
it.
us.
Okay, now you're part of Tearfund. Helen, I read this article. I think it's an article, Lightening the Mother Load. Do you right? It's what a beautiful, inspirational story.
Thank you.
Now, there's a lot to take in with that story, and there's a lot to filter, but I want you to sort of try and paint a picture of how Mums and Bubs was born and your trip to Bali and how you uncovered, maybe you discovered a part of you that you really wanted to discover.
Sure. Yeah, so Mums and Bubs as a program was born because obviously we work for Tearfund, and Tearfund does a lot of things around child sponsorship with our partner Compassion. And what we noticed was that some kids were not even making it to 5 to even get into the program in the first place. And so Compassion needed to rethink its entire programming and go right back to pregnancy and help these mums from the moment that they get pregnant up until their children are born and then beyond. And so the Mums and Bubs program comes alongside these women in pregnancy right the way through to the first year of life, and then they enter into the sponsorship program. And so my colleague Kelly and I headed up to Indonesia, where Kiwi Women here in New Zealand are supporting this exact programming in action. Now keep in mind there's tens of thousands of these mums and babies all around the world, but in Indonesia we particularly have an amazing project there. And so going up to meet these mums and babies, it's kind of like Plunket, but what's the word that we use?
Super boosted.
Yeah, supercharged.
Plunket on steroids.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like that for these mums, and it's been incredible to watch how Kiwi women have just flocked to this project because we just get it, right? Like motherhood unites us, and our differences, even though we're so different in terms of context and culture, there's those elements of being a mum that we can all relate to, and wanting to come alongside these mums who maybe don't have access to food or medical care or water, and wanting to help them.
Yeah.
Why did you pick Bali?
Great question, Kelly.
Well, it's really interesting because obviously massive culture shock. People who have been to Bali on holiday wouldn't think, well, why would you have a program in Bali? And we have actually 5 Mums and Bubs programs in Indonesia. But in Bali, there's a huge migrant community of women living in poverty who have moved there from other islands in Indonesia to try and earn an income. So one of the mums that we met that's in our program, her mum passed away when she was 11. She was pulled out of school, and at 12 she was sent to Bali to earn money for her family. So she's one of the mums in the program. She's a lot older now. She has 3 children, and her third little bubby, Gio, is in the program, and he was born with a disability, no fingers on one hand. So, I mean, imagine you've got the big resorts in Bali, and then you've got these tiny, tight streets where women and families are living in one room, no running water. It's incredibly hot. There's 12 people in a boarding house sharing one outdoor kitchen and bathroom area, and they're trying to help their baby survive in that environment. So that's the community that we're serving, particularly in Bali. And really, it is. Some of our families live on the rubbish dump there, which is taking some of the trash from those resorts.
Yeah.
And they sort and make an income out of that. So we're talking extreme poverty.
There's a huge underbelly in Bali that people don't see. So we were not staying, just to be clear, Tearfund was not staying in the expensive resorts. We were
Just sunbathing on the beach.
That was not us. That was not our journey. We were in the rubbish dumps in sweltering heat in the slums of Bali, seeing these mums. And Bali's got one of the lowest neonatal maternity rates in the world.
Yes. So maternal death rates in Indonesia are one of the highest in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And that includes mums in this community. So you've got this wide gap between rich and poor there. And the communities that we serve, we always say at Tearfund that we work with communities that are extremely vulnerable and live in extreme poverty. But until you actually see that, you can't really digest it.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about how do I have just clean water to feed my baby to cook food. I'm doing that all in one room. It really is confronting. Probably not so much for Helen because she's been to a lot of these programs around the world. But I think if you went, our listeners went there, they would just, their hearts would break and they would want to reach out to these mums. But they are incredible.
Yeah,
these mums.
and this is one of many projects we have around the world.
That's right.
Indonesia is one country of which we work in 27.
I mean, children are so vulnerable, especially when they're first born, right? And their first year, like you see nature documentaries where a giraffe lands on the ground and within like 10 minutes, he's standing up, able to walk around. He's basically an animal, just got to get going. But babies, right, they can't do anything, and you care for them 24/7, and they're so vulnerable in terms of any kind of sickness that can come. And then, that's just in like New Zealand, like raising my own children kind of thing. And then you think of someone else who lives in one room with multiple people, strangers, sharing facilities, no hygiene, all that kind of stuff. It's horrific.
Yeah.
So the work that you're doing, how did it get funded completely by a woman? Was that the idea to start with?
Well, yeah, we felt that, I'm a mum.
Yeah.
I know how difficult it was to go through those first days and that first year of life with my baby. And one of them was not well. And I remember sitting in the hospital thinking, imagine if I was one of the women in our community that we serve at Tearfund and how difficult that would be. And so I think just women can relate to the Mums and Bubs program. And believe me, many men, many families are supporting this program too. But we just felt that women in New Zealand could connect with this program and want to help. And it's easy. It's only $30 a month to help fund this program. And in fact, we did an event a year and a half ago, and it was actually because of that event that we were able to fund the Bali project.
Completely.
And totally. And absolutely, it was incredible. And it was all women at that event, so that's just how it worked out. But I have to say, the amount of women that were invited into the program because these women in New Zealand supported it, and the stories they tell are incredible. One of the mums that I met said to me, before I came to the program, I didn't know how to care for a baby, and I didn't think it mattered. But now that I'm in the program, I know how to help her thrive. I know how to feed her nutritious food. The best thing is that now I know Jesus, and my whole family knows Jesus, and my life has been transformed. And I just felt that connection between that event and those women funding and the fact and what she had to say to me. Believe me, we were like talking to the translator. Is this exactly what she's saying?
Wow.
And it was. So, Marlon, that's the mum's name, she really impacted me on that deep connection you can have when you do something small.
Yep.
And reach out, and what a big impact that can have for a woman living in poverty.
Man, you guys are rock stars, eh? Yeah, guys, we can't do any of that. Hey.
You so can.
Wow. No. You're right. I think you are right. There's so much we want to talk to you guys about.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the Empower Her Women's event coming up next. I wanted to ask you one thing, though, and this is kind of a little bit of an aside. And Helen, I know your story a little bit more, and you've travelled all over the world to all sorts of places, a lot of dark places where there's a lot of poverty, a lot of places that maybe people would consider very dangerous, and often they say to women not to go to these places, especially alone. But I know you've travelled to
I have a very strong conviction about that.
yeah. Can you talk to a little bit about that? Because there's basically nowhere you haven't been. As to where people would recommend you probably shouldn't go, maybe.
Yeah, no, I have a really strong conviction about that because I believe that there are stories that need to be told, and that as Christians, we're asked to be the salt and light in this world and asked to go into those dark places, and we go with Jesus. So yes, I have been to places like Iraq and Syria, and I do feel scared going into those places, but I go with the full support of my husband. I go prayed up like a storm, and I go there knowing that this is not just my assignment, this is my family's assignment, and my kids released me to go there. This is something we do as a family. This is something, actually, both my husband and I are aid workers, humanitarian workers. We both do this. And as I walk into those places, I sense God more powerfully than anywhere else on the planet. I see him in the eyes of Muslim women that I interview and ISIS wives that I interview. I see him after natural disasters. I see him in the midst of famine. I see his hand. I get to see him at work around the world, and there is no place I would rather be. And I have had some very hairy situations Very hairy.
I mean, that's a great question, man. I mean, because we're so far removed here, right? And the fact you've been in the battle lines with children and, you know, underprivileged, disadvantaged, the whole gamut, right? So how can people, in particular women, Kiwi women, jump on board and help support the initiative?
Yeah, so the best way that we're offering at the moment, especially on International Women's Day, is come support us in this Mums and Bubs program in Indonesia. Our heart is to reach even more women through this program. It is so simple to get involved. It's $30 a month. It supports them in that first critical year of life and gives them a totally fresh start and helps break that cycle of poverty for those families. So
Awesome.
we'd encourage Kiwis to get behind that.
Okay, and they just jump on the website?
Absolutely.
Yeah, tearfund.org.nz/mums and bubs. Yeah,
Okay.
and that creates this awesome circle of protection around these incredible families.
You guys are incredible. Really important gig that's happening on Friday called
Yes.
Empower Her. Break it down.
Yeah, I will. Well, on Friday, it's actually our first women's event since our big COVID lockdown. We're going to be having some amazing guests. They're going to do powerful short talks. We've got Audrey Butoy, who I think you guys are having on the show later.
Yeah.
And Petra Burgess is our keynote speaker for that. And then you'll hear a little bit more about the Mums and Bubs program from me. And it's a fundraiser, but it's fun. There's heaps of giveaways. Loads of great sponsors have come and funded our Fun Spot prizes. And there's a chance to, fellowship, be blessed as women so that you can be a blessing to other women in your life. So that's this Friday, 7 o'clock at Eastgate Christian Centre in Auckland, and you can grab tickets at tearfund.org.nz.
It's awesome. $20. People
That's
want to head
right.
along, right?
$20.
Tell us more about Mums and Bubs and some of the experiences, Helen, that you've had around the world. And what drives you to do this? Because, we talked before about, you've been to some intense places around the place, and often it seems like women are advised against going to these kind of places. But I think there's something that, I don't know, is special and unique that only a woman can see, or someone will open up to maybe more, or
Yeah.
a connection that you can find that me as a man wouldn't be able to.
Sure.
You can relate to a mum
Yeah.
I can't, even though I'm a parent.
Yeah.
There's something else to there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's my faith that predominantly motivates me to do this job as a humanitarian photographer and storyteller. But if I'm really honest with you guys, when I first started doing this over a decade ago, I kind of had this impression that people on the news were just fundamentally different to me, people living in poverty. Maybe they didn't feel things like I did. Maybe they were used to it. Maybe they expected less, cared less, hoped for less. And really painfully, over time, I've actually come to see that is so not true. And what people endure because they live in poverty is in no way easier for them just because they're poor. I've come to see that because of an accident of latitude, I was born a white, middle-class Kiwi female. And I've never known hunger or deep despair or not been able to afford medical care for my kids. But I've come to find that there is no us and them. There is only us. And I stand in awe. I truly stand in awe at what the poor have to carry rather than in judgment at how they carry it. And I particularly think of one woman, this is the strangest of stories, but I'm a mum to three myself, and I was in a Rohingya refugee camp, which is on the border of Bangladesh and Myanmar, and there's over 1 million people living in, I think it's 6 square kilometres, just ridiculous, a ridiculously heaving population. And I found this mum there, and she was sitting there with her 4 little girls, and unfortunately her husband had been tragically killed in front of all of them, and then horrible things happened to her in front of her children. And I remember her talking about how much I provide for them and how they were never cold or didn't go hungry, and now he was gone. And she's finding herself sitting in this refugee camp with these 4 girls to feed, and every single day it's the exact same food because that's what they get from the UN, and all she wanted to do was to be able to give her kids snacks. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I know that feeling as a mum when your kids are just asking for snacks all the time. And it was one of those moments that just transcended all culture, all context, and I got it on a deep level. And I've never forgotten that mum. She still stays with me to this day.
You can tell a powerful story because you've been in front of it, and we're out of time because we're at 8 o'clock, and I wish that we could have spent a little bit more time talking to you guys about the work that you're doing. But if you've been touched by any of that then how about you just jump into our tearfund.org.nz, check out the Mums and Bubs program, and also check out Empower Her, which is happening this coming Friday, yeah? If you want a double pass, can we steal a double pass from you?
Yeah, you totally can. I think if you call up, you can get a double
Really?
pass too. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Call up Rima. And
Or Life FM.
Yeah,
which
or
is,
Life
yeah,
FM.
okay,
Yeah,
right, cool,
call up
cool.
FM radio. And you
Okay.
can get a double pass and
Yeah.
a $100 shine-on voucher from one of our amazing sponsors.
Oh, that's awesome. You two are amazing. And you deserve a round of applause. And can you do us a favour and just take time out for yourselves today to celebrate International Women's Day, because you're doing such great, fantastic work. And on behalf of the Life FM crew, happy International Women's Day.